Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, I wanted to revisit Bitcoin, the price action, and take a look at a few different indicators than we normally do. As you all know, we talk about fear and greed, we talk about buy and sell signals, looking for good areas to buy. We use the Fibonacci retracement tool as well as moving averages. That's all fine and good. Let's quick go over fear and greed. As you can see, Bitcoin, even with this recent sell off, is still high up into greed. When we zoom out a little bit, yes, it is an overall downtrend. So do consider, did we just have a spike and we're going down before having another move up? Or are we possibly accumulating, getting ready for higher prices like what fear and greed did in 2020? Keep that in the back of your mind. But for today, I wanted to go into some different indicators and get a feel for where the market is at right now. So we can see here with the moving averages that Bitcoin is extended well above those on the weekly. We go over to the daily, and even for the daily, outside of the 20-day moving average, Bitcoin is staying at support on its 50-day moving average. So we are going to take those away for a moment. We can also see that the indicator, the Fibonacci retracement tool, when we drop from the low to the high and take it off log, that Bitcoin has recently been getting rejected off the 1618 fib. That's here at 102K. You can see that Bitcoin got right up to that 102K level, had some wicks above it. On the daily, it was in this channel, came down, and it's just been challenging it again. So I take a look at this as the same way when we have Bitcoin making a new high in March. It was a new high. That's what this gray line is. I'll zoom out so you can see. There's the high from 2021. But Bitcoin never truly closed above it. So you can see that until Bitcoin started having candle bodies closing above, that's when it was truly bullish go time. I am still looking for the same for Bitcoin's price action as far as that. We might see Bitcoin go down or sideways for a month, 2 months. I don't know. But when it starts going up, then I'll say, okay, now we can take a look at future price targets, whether it's the 2618 at 155K, whether it's somewhere in the logarithmic regression band. You can see here where it might get somewhere up to 125K. All that's fine and good. But for today's video, I wanted to take a look at some other indicators that I don't normally look at. So we'll take these fibs off and as well as the moving averages, so things can seem a little bit clear. And let's delete a couple things here. And a couple of the indicators, these are some of the more popular, common ones. But as I was going through these, a couple of the indicators I thought were interesting were the Darvas box, and I believe it was the Hull Suite indicator. So let's start off with the Darvas box. This is more of a trader's tool, and you can see that, let's put this on auto. As we go back, the price action for any stock, crypto, likes to stay in the Darvas box, but when it gets above, you could argue it's overvalued. It can come back in, and when it gets underneath, it's undervalued. If you go take a look at it at the daily, you can see times where it was undervalued, possibly good times to look for dollar cost averaging opportunities. But when it gets above, then you can say the price is extended. So I thought it was interesting that as Bitcoin has been going now a little bit sideways since November, at least around this trend line. This trend line, by the way, I'm going to zoom way out here, is from the double top in 2021. So as Bitcoin has been following that trend line ever since here in mid-November, you can see the Darvas box has been somewhat sideways too. Yes, it went up a little bit because the price went up, but the base of the Darvas box has been here, which, as you remember, is right around where the 50-day moving average is. So I would be watching the 50-day moving average and also watching, if this is an indicator you'd want to use, I'd be also watching this Darvas box to see if it got under this level at around 93K. So the 100-day moving average is somewhere around 88K, I think. Let's put that on. Yeah, somewhere around 88K. It'll keep going up because it is a moving average, but the Darvas box could also be an area to watch for. And funny enough, when you look at it, you can see there was the wick under, but it was under the moving average and it came down to that Darvas box. So that tells me people are buying up the lower end of this. Interesting. Something else to consider is let's go back in time to the prior cycles and see what was the Darvas box doing back then. As Bitcoin was getting into new all-time high territory, December 2020 to the peak of April 2021. This was alt season. Notice how many times the Darvas box or the price action came back into the Darvas box and hit the lower end of this trend line here, okay? So you can see that we had it happen once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then we had alt season here from April to May. And funny enough, even though it went underneath, this is where alt season was happening, right in here. So even though Bitcoin was coming down, we talk about Bitcoin dominance and how there's that rotation from the money that's in Bitcoin going into altcoins, going into miners. So even though this sideways and downward price action sucks sometimes, we do have to remember Bitcoin dominance. But again, even if Darvas box goes underneath, we're still overall in a bull trend. And I'll be curious to see if Bitcoin does go underneath the Darvas box and how it reacts. If it's not being bought up and coming back into it, then maybe you start to become more concerned. But you can see even when it came underneath, it was still bought up pretty good too. All right, let's take a look at one more indicator, and we'll zoom out here on the weekly, start from here. We'll get rid of the Darvas box and we'll go over to the Hull suite. And by the way, let me know if there's any indicators for Bitcoin that you would like for me to take a look at. Let me know in the comments below. But each week or every other week, when I can, I do want to take a look at Bitcoin, the price action, through different lenses, not just the same lens that we always use. And by the way, the reason I use moving averages and Fibonacci tools and buy sell signals, RSIs, all that, is because I feel that those indicators are simpler and more easy to replicate and understand. There are amazing videos out there on YouTube of people with great Elliott wave theory analysis, and that's one data point out there, but I can't replicate Elliott wave theory. I don't understand it well enough to do it on my own. And so for me, my rule of thumb is if I don't understand something well enough, if I can't replicate it, I don't use that indicator or tool as part of my decision making process. I might just tell myself, okay, that's another, if I watch an Elliott wave theory video, I might say, that's another piece of data that supports or contradicts where I'm at, but I take it with a grain of salt. Anyways, let's move on to the Hull suite indicator. And we talked about this maybe a month or so ago. It was somewhere around here. And I noted how when the Hull suite indicator, when price action moves above that, we'll just call this the ribbon band. When it moves above this ribbon, then it is bullish. When it moves underneath or into the ribbon, then it's bearish. So the Hull suite indicator, it's all the way down here at around 86K. You'll remember that's near where the 100-day moving average is, as well as you can see the 20-week moving average is within that Hull suite indicator right now. That's not always the case, but here's the 100-day at 87. You can see how the daily, by the way, the daily is different as far as how it looks. So we are going by different moving averages here. The daily, it's been underneath or right on it. But as far as the weekly, and I like to take a look at weekly moving averages to tell me more about what a macro trend is doing. I wouldn't be concerned until Bitcoin was getting underneath this Hull suite indicator as well as the 100-day moving average. So if Bitcoin gets under the Darvas box, this could be another indicator to watch for. And again, it's called the halt, sweep buy in silico. Let's put the moving averages away and just look at the Hull Suite. So recently, a few months ago, we talked about if it breaks through this Hull Suite indicator, we might see Bitcoin break out of its channel and get bullish. That's what happened. Got to the 1618. Great. Let's go back to the last couple cycles and see what happened here. Did Bitcoin get under its Hull Suite indicator? Well, it happened once and then twice at the COVID crash. Otherwise, it just bounced off of it once before going under, and this is when it had the second phase of the bull run over here. You all remember there was a double peak of Bitcoin, and this was that double peak, okay? So when it got underneath, it did go up one more time, but for alt season and the bull run, it only touched it on the weekly once, but before that, it went underneath twice. Recently, you can see that it did go underneath after it made that mid-cycle top. And now what's going to happen? Is it going to bounce? Is it going to go underneath one more time? We will see. Going back to 2017, let's take a look at this. Once the halving happened, the Hull Suite, it went underneath once, and that was it. It rode on it, but the weekly candles were still on the Hull Suite indicator, had a few bounces on the way up. So I know there's a lot of bearish news out there. We've been seeing Bitcoin have some red candles lately, though it has a green doji candle now. Green means, or the dojis mean undecided. So the market's undecided right now. If it gets through the lower end of the Darvas box, the 50-day moving average, then we look at the next areas of support. We have the Hull Suite indicator and the 100-day moving average around this area. That's where you could take a look at next supports. And then past that, if we took away the Hull Suite indicator, we go back to our moving averages or fibs. So the 50-week moving average is here at 70K. That would suck. But before that, we'd look at the daily and say, okay, there's one last moving average here at around 78, 79K. And of course, the former all-time highs or high area in the low 70K. So I've seen the sentiment out there. I know it seems like the sky's falling, but you have to take it all with a grain of salt. And remember, we look for value in the markets when there's fear. Even though this indicator is showing we are still up in greed, the sentiment that I've seen overall has, at least to me, felt more like fear than it has greed. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the fear and greed index pop back down into the neutral territory. But I did want to show you those other couple indicators, just something to keep in the back of your mind if Bitcoin goes lower. But if it doesn't, remember these moving averages, those fibs we talk about. When we take a look at other altcoins, we take a look and see, okay, are these areas for support? We'll just talk about Ethereum and then we'll wrap it up. But you can see Ethereum, okay, if we zoom way out, we have this Fibonacci retracement. Let's put it on log. We were looking at price targets before. Let's also clean this up a little bit. We'll make the background less distracting. So you can see here that the price of Ethereum, it got up to the 888 fib right here at around 4,000, the top around 4,100. That's the bullish territory. And you can see zoomed out, Ethereum's had these higher lows, lower highs. By the way, I'm just saying this out loud so you can hear how I externally process the price action and where I'm looking for value. But then we're here on the daily chart, you can see Ethereum is still holding the 786. And yes, it had some wicks go down to the 100-day moving average. That's this blue line right here, but not below it. So if it got lower than that, start closing lower, then you'd look for value at the 200-day at around 3,100. So you go by levels, and when I'm looking to buy, there's two ways to go about it. One, I look for, this is me now, not you, but if the price action comes back down to a macro fib level, I might dollar cost average in. If it gets down to some moving average levels I might dollar cost average in. I especially like when it hits on the weekly. You can see this was a rare opportunity to get Ethereum at this price, and you could have seen that by looking at the 618 fib, because it got rejected off the 888 and the 786, came down to the 618 fib, 100-week moving average, good time to buy. So you can take a look at that, or you can take a look at buy sell signals, waiting for those green dots, or other indicators like the stochastic RSI flipping positive again. So for those of you who've been around and subscribed to my channel, I try to not get into the prediction game like so many other YouTubers do. I try to always answer the essential question, is now a good time to buy? Do we have confirmation that we're flipping positive? Not quite yet. So we don't have that confirmation. We don't have the buy signals, but what we do have are the fibs and the moving averages. And right now that might be part of a dollar cost average strategy for your favorite altcoins, as well as taking a look at where Bitcoin is right now. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know, again, if there's any indicators that you would like for me to take a look at. And I just want to use indicators that are easier to understand, that are replicable. I'm not trying to offer analysis that's super complicated or over your head. My goal with this is to grow a community where we have simple to understand analysis, and we don't need to do 100 things in an okay way. But if we do a handful of things very well to understand the markets, that can help our technical analysis ability when we look for great value on the charts and good areas, whether to buy or take profits. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.